For me, it's much less about what I like and what I'm comfortable with. It's more about the content. It's about what fits the content better. And I think that that's a big distinction, because for a lot of people, it's what am I more comfortable with? It's not about you.
Yeah.
You're putting a video out for people, and those people want to hear you talk about the thing or do the thing in a specific way. And if you do it in a way that doesn't make sense, like, do a bullet point style on Mr. Beast video, his video could end up being 25 hours long. Like, it's more about the content and less about you.
I completely agree. And how cool is it to be able to adapt and switch tools that you're using for what's going to work best for the situation, make the best video possible, and ultimately make the video that you like the best, that you're the most proud of, because you were able to adapt with these different tools. With so many different things, people get stuck in using one tool because they don't know how to use another. Welcome back to the Creator Files podcast. We're doing another versus episode. So I, Julia, am going to be arguing for not scripting your videos. Maybe bullet points, maybe like a little. I mean, not even partially scripting, like no word for word any.
So are you saying scripting's good then?
And yeah, Nathan's arguing for scripting.
Yep, 100%. I think that there's a lot that could be fixed. Okay, a lot of times we talk about all of the things YouTube in context of small creators.
Yeah.
I get that that's not the case all the time for probably everybody listening, but I think it's the most helpful for the widest audience, generally speaking, because anything we talk about for small creators could probably be pretty easily applied to larger creators, and these larger creators are going to probably do a better job of taking what we say and applying it to their situation. So when it comes to small creators, I think one of the biggest reasons why I would advocate for more fully scripting is just that you do not know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And when you get in front of the camera, I know for me anyway, the first time I got in front of the camera, it's like I'm trying to speak a language I don't know how to speak.
Yeah.
I literally could not get 2 sentences out. And so if I had just done a little bit of a better job of planning out what I was going to say, maybe even writing it out on my laptop or taking a little bit of time and side hustling a little bit to invest in a teleprompter or something, I think that would have helped me get more videos out quickly, because I know that was something that helped me back a lot.
Mm-hmm. But then I would argue you're still kind of where you started with scripting ability or with not scripting ability, with comfort on camera. You still aren't comfortable on camera. You're still reading these lines and you still probably feel pretty uncomfortable, and you're probably still messing them up a lot, even if you're like more comfortable with the camera itself. Mm-hmm. I think for language, our brain doesn't really work like that. And I've noticed myself, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but I've also heard about this, that if you plan what you're going to say ahead of time, even if it's like a little joke, or like if someone's talking and you like plan too much what you're going to say next, like it can be 4 words. You'll stumble over them sometimes, even if you're not that nervous. You plan it ahead of time, and that's not how speech works. Speech is really more in the moment. And then you mess up this like simple little thing you were going to say that shouldn't have been that hard. And there's not even a camera rolling. Mm-hmm. So now add to that a camera and the pressure of having to edit things out. And it's going to be viewed by thousands of people maybe. I don't know if anyone ever gets really good at it.
Yeah, well, and I guess I can see to some extent where you're coming from. But I guess one of the other reasons why I just think in the beginning especially scripting is really, really valuable is because, yes, maybe you're still going to mess it up, but then at least you have planned out exactly what you're going to say. And from a retention standpoint, that's so important. If you're not scripting out what you're going to say, I know that people are going to say too much, and they're not critical thinking enough to, in the edit, cut out the things that they should cut out. And so it just feels like, especially, in the first 10 or 15 or 20 seconds of your video, you need to be scripting that always. And I would say even big creators, you should be scripting that, because most creators get to a point where they're comfortable on camera enough where they just kind of talk and we get excited and we're having fun, which is great, but you can script that out. And then you do it so that you are sharing the most valuable pieces of those conversations. So I don't know. I'm going to have to say that I think scripting is still better here.
Yeah. I mean, for intros, and if you're too wordy, scripting is great. I agree. Pretty much everyone's too wordy, but that's just a skill to build. You know, you could also be too wordy in your script because you write down all these paragraphs and you love them all and you get attached to it. And then because you're attached to it, because you actually wrote it down and confirmed to yourself several times that you like it, you're even more attached and less willing to cut it in the edit. Whereas maybe when something's unscripted, you kind of repeat yourself 5 times and you say it a little different each time. But then in the edit, you can decide which one you like better. Maybe you're less attached to it and you're able to cut all of them. I would agree that you shouldn't be too wordy in your intro either way. Be really, really concise.
So do you think it'd be better to spend the time scripting it or do the intro 50 times without scripting it till you finally get it right?
I think it matters a lot how connection-based your channel is. If you have a lot of like B-roll or stock footage or graphs on screen, it might not matter so much. But if you're sitting on a chair with a coffee cup and you're talking to your audience, I think people can see in your micro expressions how in the moment it is. And I think YouTube is also going that direction. It's going away from this overly scripted, overly produced, and people are seeking out more real content. And I think people can tell, even if they aren't familiar enough with the platform and with the process to know what the difference was, I think they can just say, this person feels more real.
Okay, well, let's talk about, you mentioned B-roll, that sort of thing. Very often, I'd say a video with B-roll is going to be generally better produced than a video without. I think maybe that's something we can agree on today.
Yep.
So when you are using B-roll, you are oftentimes still talking while B-roll is being shown, correct? So if there's B-roll in a video and I'm still talking, it feels like, and I've had this personal experience because I've tried it, where I know that I need to say something specific in the 7 seconds that this B-roll is being shown. And I have tried not scripting, and I'll just say, you know what, I'm just going to hit record. I'm going to see if I can get everything out in 7 seconds. It took me probably 20 tries to get exactly what I wanted to say. I had 20 audio clips. I had to take them from my microphone. I had to put them on the computer. I had to put them in the editor. Oh, I got the wrong one. Now I have to go back. Whereas if I would have just scripted it out, I would have literally saved myself so much time. And to me, when a creator is small, or any creator, I know I keep saying small creators, but any creator, time is so precious. So yes, it's a skill to learn how to be good scripting, but you're removing an element that could harm, right? So if I just script it out to exactly what I want to say to the perfect length, I am more likely to say it the right way, even if my micro expressions aren't perfect, or even if maybe I get too attached to one sentence. It's still going to sound more concise and put together. And I would argue that the time savings alone is probably still worth it, even if it doesn't sound perfect.
So you're saying you would put the B-roll in the editor, or at least watch it, and say there's 7 seconds of this, and now I need 7 seconds of scripted audio over it?
In some cases, yes.
Okay. Why can't you just do talking head and then decide how much B-roll to put over that? And maybe it's 7 seconds, or maybe you realize that B-roll gets boring after 4 seconds and you want 3 seconds and then back to the talking head.
I could see that also, but I still think the talking head would have been better if it was scripted. I think if you script the talking head, then it's going to be more concise, and then maybe you know automatically you only need the 3 seconds rather than quick. Because here's the thing. When you're not scripting, if you're just doing bullet points, I guarantee you're going to go off topic, even if you don't mean to. Because I've also worked with bullet point scripting before, and I know that when I start talking, sometimes I don't know where it's going to go. And I just start because I have 3 bullet points, and that's supposed to give me a 10-minute video, and I end up talking about something for 2 minutes that just doesn't matter. If that happens to me, if I have like a 3 or 4 bullet point video, 2 minutes of it becomes irrelevant. Maybe I'm struggling to think of things to say anyway, but then when I do think of something to say, I start to get in this flow, and the flow is good. It sounds natural, but it's not what the audience came for. It's probably closely related, but it's just not going to be what they hoped for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear you. But I think that sometimes those are the gems, the things that you didn't plan. Sometimes they're the funniest moments, or maybe it's the side tangent that you end up realizing is really relevant, or at least builds the connection with the audience. The other day I was filming a video on my personal channel, and I did a challenge, and I didn't stick to the challenge perfectly. I knew I didn't. I was going to be honest about that from the beginning. But then I started making excuses about it. And I was saying like, yeah, well, I didn't follow up perfectly. I probably should have done this, but it was a tough situation. And after like the second time I made that excuse, I realized I shouldn't be making excuses in the moment. And I said, actually, I'm making excuses. I should have just done this other thing. And there was like, watching the footage back, there was genuine emotion on my face. Like, oh, maybe a little bit of shame or just like realization.
Okay. I could see that.
That's one of my favorite moments from one of my videos in a while.
So it just felt more real.
Yes. And it's a conclusion I don't think I would have come to if I had scripted and just rehearsed the script. It was because I was letting those words flow naturally. I think I did cut out like 2 of the excuses. I didn't keep all 3 of those, repeating those excuses in the video. I cut it out to 1. And then just immediately after that, I said, oh, actually, I'm making excuses.
Yeah. So you are a very kind of time and productivity focused person.
Indeed.
You are. And it seems to me like scripting is a more productive way to complete kind of your video planning. Because one thing that I've noticed is like when we will maybe we were doing bullet points on our videos, we will get into our filming and we'll end up having further discussions about what we should say in specific spots because we only did bullet points. And then as the video kind of progresses, we realize that what we had planned, we spent a lot of time planning. Even what we planned didn't quite fit anymore because we kind of took the video a slightly different direction. So how do you reckon that? How do you reckon that with being productive, sticking to the schedule? Because I feel like scripting is just a way to more likely stick to a productive schedule than just bullet pointing and then saying, well, hopefully it works out in the recording. It feels like I could script out and plan whatever, an hour for scripting, and then know my recording session is going to take 20 minutes rather than saying I'm in a bullet point. Maybe that takes 20 minutes, but then my recording session could take 2 hours. But you just don't know because you're not really sure where the video is going to go. So how do you, as someone who's productive and very focused on time management, how do you reckon that?
Fun question. I like that. I think that the ability to adapt is kind of an advantage here. You think, okay, well, I can spend an hour scripting, but maybe you're an hour into it and like nothing's coming together. You hate it. And I think it's a little bit like Parkinson's law of you decide when you're going to record and you could have a script by that time or you could not. But either way, you're going to decide that you're going to record on this day at this time. I find personally, I can't speak for everyone, but personally, I find that scripting holds me back. That if I try to script a video, it never feels good enough. I hate it. And sometimes I don't script and I film a video and I still hate it. But I feel like I'm more clear at that point on why I hated it and then maybe what else to try. Maybe I refilm, but I know what else to try versus just like getting that analysis paralysis, that perfectionism that's going to stop me from recording at all. Often it just comes together once I start recording. I have some bullet points. As I go, I see how they come together and I lean into the parts that I'm getting more passionate about talking about and maybe talk less about some other things that I didn't plan so much. I'm also kind of arguing for bullet points. I think bullet points are very helpful to kind of guide you and remind you what you wanted to talk about, especially when you're implementing a storyline, which I think you almost always should, no matter what kind of content you have. The bullet points and thinking through that storyline is very important. But thinking about the way you say it, I just think that sometimes we don't know how we're going to want to say it. It's too hard to script like highs and lows and times when you get really excited and you just have to emphasize this thing. And then times when you're a little calmer and you're like, oh, I'm making excuses or whatever the case may be. It's so hard to script that and then remember the inflections and the variety or kind of add it artificially. And then it's not happening at the right times. And it's almost like AI. When you listen to AI, it doesn't sound right because it doesn't know what to emphasize. So it's all monotone, or maybe it does it, but it sounds awkward. And another thing I would argue is, I think for myself and most channels, the recording is not the biggest time suck. So if you can shorten the planning and shortening the editing, it's way more important. And if you have to allot 2 hours for filming, then you do. I would say for that, it's kind of an exception. Give yourself more time than you need to get it right and to not feel pressured. For a lot of things, I think it's better to give yourself less time so that you don't overthink it and you move forward. But with something like recording, I think, okay, fine. Maybe it'll take 2 hours. You probably think it'll take half an hour, but block out 2 hours. And then if you're done early, you're done early.
Right.
That's what I would say there.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. So the very most recent video, I just recorded one 2 days ago and I fully scripted it.
Really?
Yeah. And now I will admit, sometimes I try other forms of scripting, but I fully scripted this video because I knew that just the way that I am, the way that I speak and the way that my thoughts process, I have a very hard time getting out my thoughts in a very precise sort of way the first time around. And so with this video, what I did was I sat down and I just sort of like started flowing thoughts onto the paper. Like, this is sort of where I think the video where I want it to end up. Here's where it could start. And I just started like typing as if I were speaking. And I wondered how long of a video it would turn into, because I think it was like kind of 2 pages of fully scripted. Honestly, I just did it in my notes app on my computer, so I really don't know. You can see here. You guys watching can't see, but like it's not that much.
Yeah.
Like that's a fully scripted. Yeah, it's pretty small. 2 little scrolls on the laptop.
Smaller than expected.
Yeah. So basically I did this process, and then after I got the initial kind of script put through, I read through it, edited a couple things, added a couple things, and then I got out my phone and I started a timer. And I just spoke it. I just read it and spoke it so that I could figure out approximately how my video would, flow and run. Okay. So I like spoke it out loud, no camera. I was literally just sitting on my couch, probably watching Mickey Mouse Clubhouse or something, and just sitting on my couch, like just speaking this. And it turned out to be like 7 or 8 minutes, I think. So I thought, okay, that's about where I wanted the video to fall. I don't want it to be too long. I want it to be just about in that length. And what it allowed me to do is I figured out how long it would be. I went to sit down to record. And as I was recording, it was going to be a situation where I needed to like get it word for word. And we know that that's tough. I'll admit fully, without a teleprompter, getting it word for word is really tough. So I had fully scripted this video to say pretty much exactly what I wanted to say. So what I ended up doing was I would take a section, and Julia, you probably saw, like, I kind of broke them up, kind of like double space. So it's just like very short segments. And I just started by not exactly saying word for word what I had written, but I would read what I had written, and then I would just speak that to the camera. And so I don't know if that's like cheating on fully scripted, but I like fully scripted out word for word this entire video, and then I made sure that every sentence I said matched the intent of the sentence that I wrote, and that it wasn't longer than the sentence that I wrote. So I still was able to adapt it a little bit so it could sound natural and sound like me, not the way I would write, but the way I would speak. And then it allowed me to also make a couple little jokes here or there. So because you argued when you're fully scripting, you just can't do that. But as I was presenting this information that I put together, there were little times where I thought, oh, a little joke would be funny here. And so I was still able to add that in. And I would just do it naturally right when I thought of it. And then because when I'm editing, I'm chopping everything up anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not like the joke has to be perfectly said at the perfect time. As long as I say it naturally, I can cut it up and put it somewhere where it makes sense. So I would argue that in this fully scripted scenario, I got all the benefits of doing bullet points, but I got all of the benefits of fully scripted too.
I like the way you did that. Just one question.
Okay.
Would you say that is truly fully scripted?
I wrote it all out. So
but you didn't say it the way you wrote it out.
So no.
And you threw in some impromptu.
I mean, kind of. It kind of is. Like I took all the steps to fully script it.
Right.
No, okay, but I get where you're coming from. So I guess technically no. Technically no. But I feel
way more
like
than typical bullet points.
Way more. Yeah, like every piece of information in this video was thought out. Like there was no sentence that I skipped over. There was no sentence that I, took one sentence and turned it into 4 sentences when I spoke it. It was all like one sentence written, one sentence spoken.
Very close.
Like, yeah, it was like very, very close. So yeah, I get what you're saying. Technically, no, I cheated. But I think that it allowed me to be in the mindset, I think, of bullet point. But then having the clarity and the consistency and the conciseness, I don't even know if that's a word, conciseness of fully scripted. So I don't know, maybe you're right. Maybe I cheated a little bit. Maybe it's more of a partial script.
It's pretty close. Pretty close.
But it's pretty close. It's probably like a 94.5 fully scripted.
Yeah. Have you watched the footage yet?
Yeah. So I did a rough cut on the footage.
Okay.
and then I added in visuals.
How do you feel about your delivery?
I love it.
Really?
I really, really like it.
That surprises me. Not so much because I'm so against scripting, but because I know you. And that doesn't seem like your style to me.
Yeah, and I think typically
me.
it's not. And now I will admit that this is a very specific type of video that works really, really well with fully scripted. There are types of videos that I do that I will admit I don't think would work as well.
Yeah.
There are a lot of videos where I'll film over multiple days, kind of random scenarios, and to fully script the situation wouldn't feel quite right.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest. But this video where it is more of a sit down, I've done a ton of research. I'm sharing some things that took some digging that the average person wouldn't find. Like all of this has to be pieced together perfectly, and it just makes me sound really smart.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what I like about it. It makes me feel like in my mind, usually I would like to think I have lots of good, smart thoughts, but sometimes when I'm just speaking them out, spur of the moment, they don't sound that good. Anyone listening knows what I'm talking about here by listening to this podcast, but it allowed me to get like the best of the scripting because even if I messed up the sentence one time, I could revisit the sentence that I wanted to say and go, okay, I used this word and I really liked how, the feeling that gave, and I can throw that into this other sentence. Anyway, I just really liked that about it.
Yeah. You don't have a lot of time to make videos. You're very busy. And I know you like prefer publishing over overanalyzing or perfectionism. You think publishing frequently is really important.
Yeah.
How much extra time did it take you to script this versus outlines, like bullet point outlines?
It definitely took some more time. But that's because I pretty much don't outline at all. Some of these other types of videos where it's like filming over multiple days, I usually just come up with a concept, and I'm not recommending this at all. I usually just come up with a concept and go, this is where I think it'd be cool for it to end. Here's where I can start kind of within my means of my channel. And I just kind of go for it. And as it goes, I just think creatively and go, okay, this isn't really what I thought it was, but it's kind of cool. So we'll just go with it. And it turns out all right, usually. But this definitely took some more time. I think to fully script this out, I probably sat down for an hour.
Okay. Can you afford an extra hour for every video?
Right now, I think yes. Well, I'm doing the Content Warrior Challenge, which is kind of kicking my butt. But usually I'd say yes. Usually I spend a ton of time in the edit a lot of times. However, this type of video, the edit is a little easier just because it is all filmed in one spot, kind of sit down. So the edit gets a little easier. There are a ton of assets that go along, kind of B-roll type assets, but it's not, it is a little less creative. Like in my other video styles, it'll be over like 2 months' time I'm filming, and I have 45 video clips that I need to cut together a story and make, build a storyline. That is a lot more hard creatively. So some of the time that I'm saving in not doing that editing style, I can spend a little more time on the front end. I probably should spend a little more time on the front end with those other types of videos too. But so yeah, I'd say yes, I can afford it. And I think that it's totally worth it. This video that I'm making, I don't think I could have made it if I just bullet pointed. I don't think it would come off nearly as well because this style of video, if you look around the industry, they are very well thought out, very well planned, very well researched. And in order to compete at all with that, I need to do that too.
And it didn't stunt your creativity because you're mentioning all this creativity that comes from just starting with an idea and kind of an endpoint, and then it takes twists and turns. How do you know that something more creative couldn't do well in this industry?
So like this type of video that I'm doing, it's kind of like a research very deep into specific businesses or ideas or ideologies, that kind of thing. It's like a very much a deep dive style of video. So a lot of the creativity comes in the research of it. So like thinking of something and, coming up with a question and then deep diving, trying to find, like in this video, I needed to find a specific piece of information about a company that doesn't exist anymore. And so I literally searched everywhere on the internet, and I ended up finding one screenshot that I needed deep in an old Amazon listing of a product that's discontinued, but one of the product photos had the answer that I needed. Like it was this like amazing deep dive. And so in the video, I was able to outline how cool that process was and say, okay, I really needed this information, and you guys know why we need it because there's this whole gap, and I was able to find it. And so there's a little bit of creativity there. It's just a different type of creativity. And so I don't think it limits at all. I think it just stretches a different piece of creativity for me.
And the story had already happened. So you're just scripting what already happened.
Exactly.
So you can adapt with things that you didn't expect.
Yep.
during that process. Interesting. Oh, what else?
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit more about your point
Okay.
to the way that I fully scripted this.
Okay.
I think it's probably productive to talk about the in-between a little bit because I mentioned, like, I didn't truly fully script this.
Yeah.
And I think the reality is for most creators, you're never going to truly stick to one style.
Mm-hmm.
If you are bullet point scripting, which you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, you're probably not always bullet point scripting. You're probably doing some other types of scripting as well. And for me, I've experienced the same thing where I may be 95% fully scripting, but that other 5% is important. And there's a reason why I didn't fully script that.
Yeah.
It might be that connection or the jokes or the anecdotes. What does that in between look like? And how do we balance or figure out what the right type is for us? I think that that's probably where most people will land.
Yeah. I think that everybody should be doing a mix, but I
Mhm.
think a lot of people get in the habit, probably especially with outlines, where they never script something. And so they don't have practice in doing it at all. And I think some people are probably pigeonholed too in scripting fully and never branching out from that, probably if they're really not confident in just starting. I feel like eventually if you fully script, you're almost always going to, at some point, get comfortable enough on camera that you want to break away from that a little bit. But I
Yeah.
think the important thing is to practice both, like build both of those skills. Even if you think you're really partial to one and you're not going to change, having both those skills is really important so that if you have different kinds of videos, you can do that. I think scripting your intros is a great idea. A lot of times scripting something, if there is going to be B-roll or some on-screen visual where you can read some script, keep it
Yeah.
concise, is great. Another point I was going to bring up, though, is lives.
Mm.
If you have never just talked to a camera without a script, good luck doing a live.
Yeah. Scary.
So
It's scary even if you do talk to
Yeah.
a camera without a script. But yeah, that's a good point. There are so many ways to do this, right?
yeah, we
And
made a video
a
about
lot of it. Yeah. Actually, we made a video about
on
that.
channel makers.
And in that video, we talked about this concept of partially scripting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that whatever percentage is right, whether it's more bullet point or more fully scripted, I think that just depends on your channel, but not only even on your channel. I would argue video by video.
Yeah.
Because like I've mentioned on my channel, I have a couple different types of videos that I love creating. And fully scripting or mostly scripting works really well for some, and it does not work at all for others. And so if I was just to say, well, I just like fully scripting, like I would ruin these other videos that I'm trying to make. And so I think you're right. The best thing you could do is to learn everything
Yeah.
and to see what works for different scenarios. When I first got on camera, it was bullet points all the way. I didn't have much of a choice but to learn bullet points because that was the style of the channel that I started with. And I think that was a great exercise for me. It was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It was really uncomfortable just because a lot of times I didn't know exactly what to say. I maybe felt like if I said something wrong, it would be the end of the world. And I was always very fearful of that. But over time, as I did it over and over and over again, it allowed me to get not way more comfortable on camera, but better at articulating a thought kind of on the go and just sharing it.
Yeah.
And then realizing that it can be cut in the edit. If something doesn't sound great, you can cut it or you make a joke about it, or like it's not the end of the world. And so I've done way more bullet pointing than I have done fully scripting. But as I've kind of come into the world of fully scripting a little bit, I really like it.
Yeah, getting one over. How much do you think you will fully script in the future, percentage-wise?
Probably 50%.
Cool. Wow,
Just because I
interesting.
think the two kind of types of videos on my channel, one works really well with the more fully scripted, one works not well at all. So probably a 50% split.
Yeah.
But again, that's just because that's the type of videos that I'm doing. For me, it's much less about what I like and what I'm comfortable with. It's more about the content. It's about what fits the content better. And I think that that's a big distinction because for a lot of people, it's what am I more comfortable with? But it's not about you.
Yeah.
You're putting a video out for people, and those people want to hear you talk about the thing or do the thing in a specific way. And if you do it in a way that doesn't make sense, like if I was to fully script like a Mr. Beast, Mr. Beast does kind of fully script, or, do a bullet point style on Mr. Beast video, his video could end up being 25 hours long. Like it's more about the content and less about you.
I completely agree. And how cool is it to be able to adapt and switch tools
Yes.
that you're using for what's going to work best for the situation, make the best video possible, and ultimately make the video that you like the best, that you're the most proud of, because you were able to adapt with these different tools. I think with so many different things, people get stuck in using one tool because they don't know how to use another. And they know that maybe they should, or that some people like this other one better, but I just like this. But like, maybe if you learned how to use both really well,
right,
you would switch between them more. And these tools are free. You just have to practice and learn. And yeah, if you're just focused on what you are comfortable with or what you like better, I think you're limiting yourself. You might be surprised what you actually like better down the road. And it's so worth it to just get comfortable with both of them so that you like both of them.
Yeah.
And you can use the one that's best for the situation. And you'll like that. You'll like the time it saves you and the quality of the video. Just get out of your comfort zone. It's probably a sign. If you feel like you can only do one, sign that you can practice getting out of your comfort zone. I also think there's things outside of YouTube you can do. Like Toastmasters is pretty good for, there's some downsides to it, but you can practice like impromptu speaking, especially if you want to do a lot of lives. Just practicing, you know, just practice going live, even if you don't want to, and even if you stumble over your words, and maybe next time it's a little better, and just get used to being really comfortable. Even podcasting, it's like, it takes a little bit to get out of your head. And if you're thinking too constantly about the audience, it's like you need to practice so that at game time, you don't have to think about it.
Right.
You have to practice so much so that by the time you're actually doing it, it's automatic enough that you don't have to think about it. Because if you have to think about it, you're going to mess it up. If I'm thinking about how every word is getting delivered to the camera and what the audience is going to think of this, and it's going to get messy really fast. And I'm going to freeze up like a deer in the headlights because I'm going to forget my train of thought. Sometimes I still do that. I'm sure when I forget my train of thought, it's more awkward when I'm on camera than the rest of my life, because it's like, oh no, the camera's rolling. I'm supposed to say something.
Right.
But with practice, you can be in the moment more when you're finally in the moment.
Yeah. Get the tools. Fill up your tool belt. I think to me that's kind of right when you said that. I was like, I'm not going to try and cut down a tree with a hammer. Right. I need to use the right tool. And so it's just all about building out your tool set, because at the end of the day, we start using different things because that's what we're comfortable with, even if that is to the detriment of what we're creating. You know, if I'm trying to paint a picture with a pair of scissors, it's like not going to work. I need a paintbrush, right? I need the tool that will allow me to create the best piece of art. And that is what YouTube is, right? It's learning 1,000 different skills and using 1,000 different tools to create a piece of art, whether it's education or entertainment or building connection, doesn't matter. Right.
You'll notice that experts and almost anything will often say it depends all the time, which drives beginners crazy, because they're like, which is the best? Like, which is the best kick to knock someone out? Well, it depends on where they're coming from you from. And do they have a weapon, or do they not? And it depends is almost always the answer. And that drives people crazy, but it's because they recognize that, that once you have access to all of them, you're going to want to use different options.
And I think that speaks to a little bit of the maturity of the person who's talking. If they're willing to tell you it depends, there's humility in that, I think. And this is kind of a whole different topic, but if someone's willing to not give you a straight answer, that speaks to them. Because if someone gives you a straight answer on a very complicated subject and they oversimplify something very complicated, either they're just trying to help you understand it, and that's fine, or they're just trying to look smart. And I think that if someone's willing to tell you it depends, like, maybe you feel frustrated by that, but think about why they're telling you that, because a lot of things are way more complicated than a one sentence answer.
Right. Yeah. I think the exception to that is maybe for now. You know, if you're making your first 3 videos, for now, maybe pick one or the other.
Yes.
Like, just because you don't want to drink from a fire hose, and you don't even have one of the skills down, or even halfway or quarter of the way down. Like, get used to doing one 3 times so you feel a little comfortable with one, maybe 10. You know, it can be for now, but I think that's the same thing for anything, for martial arts. Maybe, the best way at your level to knock somebody out is for now going to be a round kick or whatever. I'm not a martial artist.
Yeah, you're right.
But there's humility in that, and there's humility in recognizing that maybe you're not doing the best way, even the best way for you. Maybe you could try something else. Oh. I think I'm out of things to say. What about you?
I'm good. I think I won. Let us know.
Yeah, let us know. I would love to hear it too. I think we both made some good points, and I'm not sold on the scripting, but I'm sold on scripting some of the time. I'm going to try it.
Fair enough.
Awesome. See you guys.